This is Lona as an infant in the arms of her father Lon. Lona at 2.5 in front of her house with her brother-in-law Logan. Oldest sister Joyce and Logan leaving the church after their wedding. Lona as a teenager. This is the family rustic cabin at Bean Lake where Lona learned to love roughing it. Lona's middle sister Ray, her daughter Margot, and Lona celebrating a birthday at Bean Lake. Don and Lona's wedding in MU's Green Chapel on the day of Lona's graduation. Ray came to visit Lona and Don in Rolla when Don was starting graduate school. This is the expression on the face of Lona's mother, Margaret, when she was shown her first color TV that her 3 daughters had bought her. Lona on an outing in Rolla. Jim Caesar visited Don and Lona in San Jose. Don and Lona with Judy Caesar visiting their home in Columbia, Missouri. Don and Lona with the Caesars on the same trip to Columbia. This is Don and Lona about 1990 with old friend and fellow runner Alan Hart. This is Don and Lona at Yellowstone Park on the deck waiting for Old Faithful to erupt. This is Don and Lona at MU with Professor Joe Willett, his wife Ellen, and the Caesars. The Willets lived just down the block from Don and Lona and became very close friends. This is Lona in June of 1979, beginning our snow and ice ascent of Mount Shasta. Here we are on the summit of Mount Shasta with friend Joan Cummings. Note the ice axes and the crampons required to get up there. This is another view of the 3 of us on the summit of Mount Shasta. This one gives a little more perspective of how high we are above the surrounding landscape. This is April of 1980. We're taking a backpack trip through rugged Henry Coe State Park with Joan and Craig Cummings. This is June of 1980. Lona and I are taking a rest break in our backpack trip down into the Grand Canyon all the way to the Colorado through Havasu Canyon where the Indians live. Joan and Craig Cummings went along on that trip as well. I thank Craig for providing me with the last 5 pictures. This is Judy Brumley with Lona at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Judy was Lona's good friend from kindergarten through college and beyond. This is Lona and Judy in a forest near Pacific Grove, California, looking for monarch butterflies. The butterflies migrate there for the winter. This is Lona and Judy at Point Lobos State Preserve. Point Lobos is at the southern end of Monterey Bay and just at the beginning of the Big Sur section of the California coastline. This is Lona looking out over the Pacific Ocean at Point Lobos State Preserve. Lona on one of our weekly all-day hikes. Here we are visiting the Millers in Rolla, Missouri. This is Dick Miller. They were our best friends when Don was at graduate school in Rolla. Here we are in Redwood City, about halfway between San Jose and San Francisco at the home of Lon and Rhonda Cheney. Rhonda was Lona's friend since they worked together in the children's department at the St. Joseph Public Library. This is at a Christmas party at the home of Linda LaGregne. She was a running club friend and a middle manager at IBM. Here Lona is with George Stair in San Francisco. George was best man at our wedding. Here's Lona with Bob Coast, my graduate school office mate, and Joanne and Professor David Cowan, all very good friends when we were in Columbia. Lona is trying out brother-in-law Alan Dunning's garden tractor here. This is in North Kansas City on a visit to Lona's nephew Bill Gore. We visited Lona's cousin Chuck West and his wife Geraldine in Omaha. Lona is lovingly looking at her cousin Chuck, who she knows hasn't long to live. This is Lona hiking the Death Valley Trail that leads from the valley floor way up to Zabriskie Point. We had lunch at Boudreaux's in St. Joseph with old friends Phyllis and Larry Flinchpaw. This is Lona on one of our weekly all-day hikes, this time along the crest of the coastal range. This is Lona again with graduate school office mate Robert Coast. This is one of our best friends in Fort Collins, John Graham. Here we are at the Colorado home of Teresa Volchuk. Teresa had been one of Don's engineers in California. This is Lona looking at a full-sized model of a mammoth. This was in Vernal, Utah at the Dinosaur Museum at the edge of Dinosaur National Monument. On that same trip, we drove from Dinosaur National Monument to MU for meetings, then to Kansas City and St. Joseph to visit relatives, and then up to Red Oak, Iowa to visit old friend Clifford Glassell and his wife Carol. After visiting Cliff and Carol, we drove north to Interstate 90, turned west, and here's Lona at Pipestone National Monument in western Minnesota. Here we are in Sheridan, Wyoming, visiting David Asbury on that same trip. David lived just up the block from Lona when they were growing up. The last friend we visited on that trip was David Warner in Klamath Falls, Oregon. David was an old friend from graduate school and fishing buddy. This is Lona with David Warner and his wife Linda. After returning from that trip, we visited Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. This is Lona on the carousel. Jim Caesar came out to visit us in San Jose. This is breakfast in Telephone Canyon. It's a typical view of how we lived in our 15 extensive visits to Death Valley to explore the place. We slept on a very comfortable platform in the bed of the truck. The gear was stowed in bins underneath. We cooked on the tailgate and ate al fresco. Here we are on one of our later visits to MU. Here we are at the home of Jim and Judy Caesar in St. Louis County. This is us at the Henry Coe State Park backcountry days. This is the one time of the year when people are allowed to drive into the very distant backcountry far away from the headquarters. Here we are again at the home of Lon and Rhonda Cheney. This was taken in Bryce Canyon on an extensive tour of both Bryce and Zion. This is Lona after our hike to the bottom of Bryce Canyon, with Lona walking among the hoodoos. After a fairly extensive hike along a trail, you finally get to Zion Overlook, where this picture was taken. This is another hike in Zion. And still another hike in Zion. Here Lona is resting along the trail in Zion. Here Lona is resting again, not on a bench, but on a slab of sandstone. Here's Lona returning from a hike in the northern part of Zion Park to go visit a double arch that was very beautiful. On that same hike, we saw a Mojave green rattlesnake. This snake is one of the most dangerously venomous snakes in the country. This is at a party to celebrate the wedding of Linda LeGradney, seen earlier. Linda's husband, Ron, is in the colorful shirt. This is Jim and Judy Caesar, who came to MU to see me receive a College of Arts and Science Distinguished Alumni Award. This is Lona and brother-in-law Logan visiting Millie Cobb in St. Joseph. Logan was in his 90s when the picture was taken. I believe Millie was in about 102. This was taken at the 80th birthday party of Helen Morris. Helen was the wife of Ray Morris, HP associate and running buddy. Included in the picture are other running buddies Jim Nolan and Peng Leong. Don and Lana are in front of their house in San Jose. This is Lana south of Tucson, visiting old friend Dale Fanter and his wife Jan. I was best man in their wedding. On that same trip, we visited Chaco Canyon in northwestern New Mexico. Chaco Canyon was the spiritual center of the ancestral Puebloans. This was taken on the tour of the ruins of Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon. Pueblo Bonito was essentially the focal point of their spiritual life. This is Lona resting on a hike in Chaco Canyon to visit one of the many ruins that exist in there. Lona and I camped at Lake Abiquiu in New Mexico. The mountain in the back is called Pedernal. Georgia O'Keeffe represented that many times in her paintings. This is Lona taking a hike among the Tent Rock Formation in New Mexico. Here's Lona further up the trail in Tent Rocks. My nephew, Jim Dunning, his wife Casey, and their young daughter Zoe came to visit us in San Jose. Here we are near Mount St. Helen on an extensive 5-week tour of the Northwest. This was taken on a tour of the famous garage where Hewlett-Packard was born. This is Lona resting on a well-constructed bench on one of our weekly all-day hikes. This is on another all-day hike with Lona resting on a more modest bench. This was taken at a Death Valley Historical Society conference. Sitting next to Lona is David Blacker, the executive director of Death Valley Historical Society. You know who these people are. Jim's nephew, Jim Dunning, and niece Sarah Sedlacek came out to celebrate the birthdays of Jim and Don. Our birthdays are 2 days apart.